Hi, I'm Sarah Martinez, 32 years old, and the day I discovered my mother-in-law had been posting fake reviews and filing anonymous complaints against my salon to teach me humility was the day our family's polished facade finally shattered. You've seen those perfect family portraits, everyone smiling, but the tension behind the grins is thick enough to cut with scissors. That was us. The Martinez family, ruled by Eleanor, my mother-in-law, and the self-proclaimed queen of suburban perfection. David and I met at cosmetology school. I was there to pursue my dream of owning a salon, while he was studying business to help manage Eleanor's chain of high-end boutiques. On our first date, he said, "You're different. Mom will love that you're so entrepreneurial." Oh, how wrong he was. At first, Eleanor seemed welcoming. During our engagement, she'd pop into my little starter salon with her signature tight-lipped smile. "Darling, have you thought about moving to a more upscale location? This neighborhood is a bit quaint," she'd say, her tone dripping with artificial sweetness. After the wedding, the gloves came off. My salon, Style and Grace, was thriving. Local magazines featured us, and my Instagram following soared. That's when Eleanor's helpful suggestions turned into overt criticism. A Martinez business should exude sophistication, she'd remark at Sunday dinners, eyeing photos of my bright, modern salon. "Your prices are embarrassingly low, Sarah. It's not a good look for the family." I stood my ground. My salon was about making beauty accessible, not exclusive. Clients loved our warm, welcoming atmosphere and honest pricing. We were booked solid for months. Then came the reviews. The first one hit like a punch. "Horrible experience. The owner is unprofessional and the salon is filthy. Don't waste your money." I was devastated. I prided myself on spotless standards and exceptional service. More followed on Yelp, Google, and even local business directories. Cancellations poured in. Clients vanished. "Maybe it's a sign," Eleanor mused over dinner, barely hiding her smirk. "The beauty industry is so fickle. David's boutiques always need managers." I spent sleepless nights poring over security footage, racking my brain for answers. David tried to comfort me, torn between my distress and his mother's influence. "Mom's just old-fashioned," he'd say. "She means well." The breaking point came with a letter from the licensing board. Multiple complaints about health code violations. We faced an emergency inspection. On the busiest Saturday, an inspector combed through every corner of my salon. We passed, but the damage to our reputation was done. Something about the complaints nagged at me, the wording, the specifics. They echoed Eleanor's advice emails. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. I started digging. Eleanor wasn't as tech-savvy as she thought. She'd used the same email address to create multiple accounts, leaving a trail easy enough to follow. The final confirmation came when my friend Lisa, who worked at the licensing board, mentioned Eleanor's recent visit. She seemed really concerned about salon regulations, Lisa said. Kept asking how to file anonymous complaints. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. For years, I'd endured her veiled insults, her attempts to shape me into her vision of a proper Martinez wife. But sabotaging my livelihood, my dream, this was different. This was war. Eleanor's 60th birthday party loomed, a grand affair she'd been planning for months, the crown jewel of her social calendar. Every detail was orchestrated for maximum admiration. She had no idea I'd been planning something too. With all the evidence stored safely on my phone, I was ready. Sometimes the best way to deal with toxic people is to shine a light on their darkest deeds. And this time, I wasn't going to play the dutiful daughter-in-law. Eleanor's birthday party was every bit as extravagant as I'd expected. Held at the Crystal Lake Country Club, complete with champagne fountains, a string orchestra, and a guest list that read like a who's who of the local elite. It was her moment to bask in admiration, the queen of her carefully curated kingdom. I arrived wearing the designer dress Eleanor had all but demanded I wear. David gave my hand a reassuring squeeze as we entered. "Mom will love that you wore it," he said, completely unaware of the storm brewing. Eleanor greeted guests at the entrance, radiating practiced charm. When her eyes landed on us, her smile tightened just enough for me to notice. "Sarah, darling, you gobbed on yourself tonight," she said, air kissing my cheek. "I almost didn't recognize you." Then, turning to David, "Sweetheart, the Hendersons are dying to discuss their daughter's wedding boutique. Would you mind?" Typical Eleanor, separating us the moment we arrived. But tonight, I didn't mind. I needed her distracted. I slipped away to the tech booth where the slideshow was being cued. Tom, the AV guy and a former client, greeted me. I added those extra slides you sent, he said, right after the childhood photos, just like you asked. Perfect, I replied, steadying my nerves. Tonight, the truth was coming out. The evening unfolded like clockwork. Eleanor floated through dinner, glowing under the praise of speeches and toasts. Finally, the MC took the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, a special presentation for our birthday girl, Eleanor Martinez. The lights dimmed. A soft piano melody played as photos of Eleanor's life filled the screen. Her childhood, her wedding, the grand opening of her first boutique. Then came photos of her with David and later, our wedding. The next slide changed everything. A screenshot of a scathing Yelp review appeared, followed by another, and then another. Next came screenshots of the email confirmations tied to the fake accounts. The images of her entering the licensing board office played next, followed by copies of the anonymous complaints she'd filed. Gasps rippled through the crowd. What is this? Eleanor's voice sliced through the stunned silence. Turn it off. Turn it off right now. But the final blow was a recording. Eleanor's unmistakable voice saying, "Of course I'm leaving bad reviews. Someone needs to teach that girl some humility. She's ruining the Martinez name with her cheap little salon." Eleanor shot to her feet, her chair clattering to the floor. "You," she screamed, pointing a manicured finger at me. "How dare you humiliate me like this?" I stayed calm, though my heart was racing. "Humiliate you? Like you've been trying to ruin my business?" Eleanor stormed toward me, heels clicking against the marble floor. "Everything I did was to protect this family's reputation. Your discount prices and cheap clientele." "My clients," I interrupted, "are hardworking people who deserve to feel beautiful without going bankrupt. Something you'd understand if you weren't so obsessed with appearances." Slap. The sound echoed through the ballroom, and my cheek stung where her hand had landed. Shocked murmurs rippled through the room. "Mother." David's voice boomed. He was at my side in seconds, glaring at Eleanor. "She's trying to destroy me," Eleanor shrieked, gesturing wildly. "On my birthday, after everything I've done for her." "Done for me?" I laughed bitterly, touching my cheek. "You mean sabotaging my business, filing false reports, and trying to have my license revoked. Is this true, Eleanor?" Richard Henderson, head of the local business association, stepped forward, his tone sharp. "Filing false complaints is serious." Eleanor's mask cracked. Her usual composure dissolved into panic. "I can explain. Sarah doesn't understand our standards." "Your standards?" David's voice was icy. "Mom, you've been sabotaging my wife's dream. Her business. Our livelihood." "I was protecting you," Eleanor cried. "She's beneath us. Her little salon is an embarrassment." David stared at her, disgusted. "The only embarrassment here is you." He turned to me. "Come on, Sarah. We're done." "If you walk out that door," Eleanor spat, "don't bother coming back." David paused, looking over his shoulder. "Back to what? More sabotage? More manipulation? No thanks." As we left, the whispers followed us. Eleanor's meticulously planned evening had unraveled into a public disaster, the very thing she tried to do to me. In the car, David was silent for a long time. Finally, he asked, "Why didn't you tell me?" I looked at him, the weight of years of tension pressing down. "Would you have believed me?" His silence was answer enough. The weeks after Eleanor's birthday debacle were a whirlwind. News of the spectacle spread like wildfire through our small business community, leaving her carefully constructed social empire in shambles. The very next morning, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Local reporters requested statements, business owners called to apologize for believing the fake reviews, and our online booking system lit up with a flood of appointments. "Mrs. Martinez." Lisa, my salon manager, exclaimed one morning. "We're completely booked out for 6 months." I smiled, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. But the most surprising visitor came a week later, Richard Henderson. He walked into the salon, looking distinctly uncomfortable amid the vibrant modern decor. "Mrs. Martinez, Sarah," he began, loosening his tie. "The Business Association reviewed the evidence you submitted, filing false reports, fabricating reviews. These actions breach multiple ethical standards. We voted to revoke Eleanor's membership and business privileges." I blinked. All of them. He nodded gravely. Her boutiques will need new management. For the sake of the community, we believe it's necessary. That evening, David came home looking drained. Mom's boutiques are falling apart, he admitted. Clients are canceling their orders, staff are walking out. She wants me to step in, take over, and save the family business. And what did you say? I asked softly. He sighed, meeting my gaze. I told her no, I'm done enabling her. But I do have an idea, if you're willing to hear me out. His idea was ambitious: rebrand Eleanor's boutiques into affordable luxury stores, partnering with my salon to create complete makeover experiences. Your vision, Sarah, he said. Your business model, but scaled up. We can make the Martinez name mean something positive. I stared at him stunned. You really want to work together on this? David nodded. Watching how you treat people, how you run your salon, I want to be part of that. It's time for a fresh start, for all of us. Meanwhile, Eleanor struggled to cope with her fall from grace. Her attempts to rally support among her friends were met with polite refusals. Her country club membership was quietly revoked, and even her bridge club replaced her with a new fourth. The consequences weren't just social. The licensing board issued hefty fines and demanded a public apology. That Monday morning, Eleanor arrived at my salon for the press conference, dressed in last season's designer wear, a clear sign of her decline. She stood before the gathered reporters and business owners, hands trembling as she read from a prepared statement. I let my pride cloud my judgment, she began. My actions were wrong and caused unjust harm to a legitimate business. I deeply regret. I watched, arms crossed, as she stumbled through the rest of her apology. When the cameras left, she lingered, hesitant. I don't understand, she said quietly. Everything I did was to protect this family's reputation, to keep us on top. No, I replied, straightening a display of styling products. You did it because you couldn't handle someone else succeeding, especially not me. Her expression crumbled. And now I've lost everything. You lost it because of your own choices, I said firmly. But hitting rock bottom has one advantage: you can only go up from here. She looked at me sharply, suspicion flickering in her eyes. What are you saying? David and I are restructuring the boutiques. We could use someone with experience in high-end retail as a consultant, not an owner. You'd have to follow new rules, including no interference in day-to-day operations. You give me a chance. After everything I did to you. Everyone deserves the shot at redemption, I said, meeting her gaze. But there will be contracts. Strict contracts. 6 months later, our rebranded business, Style and Grace Boutique Experience, was thriving. The concept of affordable luxury paired with personal care resonated with our community. Eleanor, under close supervision, proved surprisingly adept at training staff on high-end customer service. One quiet evening, David and I toasted our success over dinner at home. You know, he said, pouring wine, the night you stood up to Mom, that was the proudest I've ever been to call you my wife. I smiled, thinking of everything we'd endured. Sometimes, the hardest moments bring the most important changes. Just then, my phone buzzed with a new review notification. 5 stars for one of our new boutique locations. The reviewer, Eleanor Martinez. Outstanding service, excellent value, and a welcoming atmosphere for all clients. The Martinez family legacy has truly evolved. I showed the review to David, and we both laughed. Sometimes the biggest wake-up call is exactly what someone needs to finally change. What about you? Would you have handled things differently or done the same? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.